Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Line Walker 1 and 2, two Hong Kong/Chinese action drama hybrids from 2016 and 2019 respectively. I think these were co-productions between Hong Kong and mainland China. It's adapted from the 2014 TVB series of the same name. Now, both films star Nick Cheung, Louis Koo, and Francis Ng, and that cast alone was more than enough to pique my interest and give these movies a shot. I did see Line Walker 1 a few years ago, but I revisited it and then watched the sequel for this review. So let's talk about the first film. First, Inspector Q, played by Francis Ng, and Agent Ding Siu-ka, played by Charmaine Sheh, are top members of the CIB Department, who is after a drug racket that has taken over the city. Unexpectedly, they receive a message from an undercover agent named Blackjack. CIB tries to locate Blackjack before it's too late. Meanwhile, Boss Blue, played by Nick Cheung, and his right-hand man, Shiu Chi-long, played by Louis Koo, participate in an eternal struggle to become the top dogs, irrespective of their strong relationship. So first of all, there are some tonal shifts early on in this film. You know, the opening scene is like in Brazil, pretty serious. You get some point-blank gunshots, like execution style. And then we're immediately treated to a cheesy motorbike chase involving a woman dressed in pink who is acting rather silly. But it is intentionally trying to be funny in that scene, even though that particular scene failed to amuse me personally. Now, to the actress's credit, Charmaine Sheh, she did make me chuckle on a few occasions afterward. Throughout the course of the film, I did end up liking her. And I will give this film credit. There are a few funny moments. There's a line of dialogue. I have it written here to say, but I'm not going to say it because it's so amazing. But there's a scene in like a casino, I think, where Charmaine's trying to seduce Louis Koo's character, and he has one line that rejecting her. That's one of the best lines of the recent years. It's hilarious. But I'll let you experience that for yourself. On the other hand, there are moments where the film does take itself seriously, like the scene where Nick Cheung's crew executes a mole that they identify in their ranks. But overall, I think the tonal shifts, they work okay in this. You know, this isn't like a Bong Joon-ho movie where it's like this expert blending of genres or anything like that. You know, you don't get that here, but they're decent enough, even though they're a bit rough around the edges. So the script of this film, the first Line Walker film, is kind of weak, I think. It has some completely absurd twists that kind of stretch credibility a little bit, but I did find the story to be moderately entertaining despite its flaws. In terms of pacing, I think there are some interrogation scenes and other discussions between the characters that do slow things down at times. But I would say overall the pacing is okay. It's fine. Not exactly fast-paced. But the cast definitely helps keep things watchable. You know, I'm a fan of all three of these lead actors, so I have kind of a bias there, and it did help me stay engaged. Now, there is some pretty good action in this movie, although some of the scenes are short scuffles near the beginning. There's a scuffle between Louis Koo in a hotel room against a hit woman. Decent, and it has a slightly comedic vibe to it. And then there's another short scuffle with Nick Cheung and his bodyguard who fight off a handful of dudes who are armed with swords. Again, decent scene, but there's not much of a wow factor in this yet. The first legit action scene, though, is a shootout set in Brazil involving military personnel and some tricked out vehicles. That's a good scene, and it's the first impressive gunfire exchange of the movie. And you could kind of feel the action picking up at this point in the film. And, later on you get a shootout in a parking garage that's good, and then a violent knife fight near the end. So I think, overall the first Line Walker movie is a pretty good action flick with some comedy thrown in. Not much that's really going to impress you in this at a high level, but it's certainly watchable, and it's more consistent when compared to something like the Trough that I reviewed recently, currently available streaming on Amazon. Now, the second film here's your plot. An international terrorist organization abducted many children, turning them into spies to work at various police forces around the world. after Superintendent Yip, played by Francis Ng, and Chief Inspector Ching, played by Nick Cheung, arrest a female hacker named Yu, who is about to piece together the schemes of the organization. Superintendent Chang, played by Louis Koo, tries to take the case off their hands. Soon, there are blurred lines between good and bad cops. So, to state the obvious, after reading that plot synopsis, the actors return but play different characters in the sequel. So, Line Walker 2 is not like a direct sequel storyline-wise. It's just in the same film franchise. It's a different story with different characters who are played by the same 3 actors. Now, the first scene shows little kids getting abducted, and the second scene shows a businessman seemingly losing his mind and runs people over in his car. So early on, you're thinking to yourself, is Line Walker 2 going to have a darker tone than the first installment? And the answer to that question is yes. Line Walker 2 is actually consistently darker and takes itself seriously throughout. In fact, a few of the characters have convincing motives for their actions because really bad stuff happened to their loved ones. So there's some motivations here for sure. And the main villain, even though he's kind of shallow, he's very evil and unlikable, which is a good thing because you want to see him get taken down. So I do think Line Walker 2 does one-up its predecessor by actually having some genuine emotion in it, and as well as a little bit more of an edginess. The action is also an improvement, I think. We get a fun little fight on a moving bus to start the film, some cool disarming maneuvers from Nick Cheung, and then I very much enjoyed the shootout in Myanmar, with Nick and Louis attempting to retrieve and escape with a data disk. And you get lots of gunfire in a highly populated area. Like, it feels like a big budget scene involving a lot of bad guys who are like closing in on our protagonists, who are trying to like get to their helicopter extraction point. And it's probably the best action scene in either movie. So that was a good one. There's some other, shootouts and scuffles here and there. There's one involving like smoke bombs and night vision that was pretty cool. A few bonus fights in between the action scenes. And then a shootout in a restaurant where all of our leads like are attempting to cover one another, but there's a chance that one of them might be trying to kill the other. So it's a pretty cool scene. And then the final half hour has a bunch of confrontations. It takes place in Spain. The thing about the final action scene, though, it has some crazy twists, like the first film, but I feel like the twists in this one are a little bit more believable. They're a little bit more believable. They're stretched a little bit, but I like the twists in this one. I didn't see a few of them coming, which is cool. And there is some CGI work in the final action set piece that doesn't really hold up very well. And it was just released. When was the second one released? It was released in 2019, and already the CGI just isn't. They use it for like some animals for some reason, and it gets a little bit ridiculous. Unrealistic physics in that scene a bit too much. But I think it's still a relatively satisfying finale. So I quite enjoyed Line Walker 2. I think it's an overall improvement over the first film, and it's currently available streaming on Tubi. So both films are readily available. But you could watch these films in either order, because they're different stories. If you're at all interested in these, I would suggest watching Line Walker 2 first, because I think it's just the better of the two films. And then if you like it, you want something a little bit cheesier, watch the first one. But let me know what you think of these. These are, they kind of fly under the radar a little bit, despite their big casts. I don't really hear a lot of people talking about these, but I think they're pretty good flicks. And as always, I'll see you next time.